Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2023 Conference Championship predictions for college football. Now, we're already here. This is it. Week 14, just pre-playoff and bowl game week, bowl season. We're already here. We're already at the end. It's crazy how fast this season went by. It's been wild. There's been ups, there's been downs, there's been crazy upsets, there's been everything this season. But we are finally here, Conference Championship week in the world of college football. And we have 10 conference championships. And I am going to be predicting the winner of each one. Now, I'm not going to waste any more time. If you guys watch the season, then you guys know what the matchups are. If you guys follow college football, you know what's going on. So, without further ado, I will give you the first matchup. Friday at 7 o'clock. It will be New Mexico State taking on number 25 Liberty. Now, before I continue, this is being recorded on Tuesday afternoon, so the CFP rankings have not dropped yet. So the whole rankings for these teams is probably going to completely change by the time this video is out. Just want to make that clear. Anyway, New Mexico State versus number 25 Liberty for the Conference USA Championship. Now, Liberty is favored by 10 points going into this game. Liberty is 12-0. They are undefeated, which is absolutely insane. They are undefeated in the conference, undefeated in the season. And New Mexico State is currently 7-1 in the Conference USA and are 10-3 overall, the Aggies are. 7 o'clock on CBS. Who do I think wins this one? Well, if I grab my trusty mouse here and look at the stats, I checked a little bit before this video. Not Louisville. They're later. Liberty has... They definitely wiped the floor with Conference USA this year, I'll say. Just basing it off of the scores. I mean, a few games were closer than others. Like, for example, the Sam Houston game, 21-16, a little close. But some of these games, 42-29 over Western Kentucky, 31-13 over Jacksonville State, 49-25 over UMass, 42-28 over UTEP, 38-10 over Old Dominion, 56-30 over Louisiana. I mean, some of these games are absolutely dominating. And yes, Liberty did beat New Mexico State in week 2 of the season, 33-17. They dominated, and they play them again. Now let's go to New Mexico State. And yes, they have 3 losses. They lost to UMass. Opening up the season, they lost to UMass. And then they lost to Liberty, obviously. Almost been... Okay, I think New Mexico State... Yeah, they played week 0. That's why I'm seeing... It looks like week 3. So yeah, they lost week 2 to Liberty. And then they lost again around week, say, 4 or 5. Not sure which way exactly it is. Could have been a bye week here and there. Against Hawaii, they lost 2017, a close one. But ever since then, they have won. They've won pretty soundingly, except for a couple close ones like Liberty. They've had actually a lot more closer ones. But they did have a good win over Auburn. Now, Auburn obviously isn't what they used to be. They are definitely more bottom of the barrel now than what they were in the past. But Auburn put up a damn good fight against Alabama on Saturday in the Iron Bowl, falling just short in a heartbreaker. I thought Auburn was going to win that one, but Alabama once again found a way to continue to survive. And they beat Auburn soundingly, 31-10. Killed Auburn. It was at Auburn too, which is incredible. So I mean, and yes, Auburn's a bottom of the barrel, but they're an SEC school, and New Mexico State going in there from Conference USA and beating them like that, it's definitely a big statement. So who do I think is going to win this one? 12-0 Liberty, who are ranked in the top 25, number 25 exactly, of course subject to change, against New Mexico State, 10-3. I'm assuming it's probably lurking around the top 25 area. I picked Liberty to win this one. I picked Liberty to go 13-0. Liberty will be going bowling, obviously. Both these teams are going bowling, but I think Liberty's going to be in a good bowl game. I think Liberty will win this one. I'm not going to say any scores because I'm not that precise about it. I'm just going to say the winners. I think Liberty takes the Conference USA Championship 2023. Do I think it's going to be a closer game? Yes, I think it'll be a closer game than their first meeting. But do I still think it's going to be a different outcome? No, I think Liberty will win once again. It'll be a closer game, but Liberty will win once again, improving to 13-0 and Conference USA champions of the 2023 season. Alrighty, up next. Holy shit. This is going to be one of, if not the game of the weekend. If you guys don't know, I mean, obviously, look at the channel, the recent video, you probably know this already. I'm an Oregon Ducks fan, so this game, I'm excited for this one. This is going to be an amazing game. And also, I want to take time real quick and say thank you for the support on that hype video. Over 8,000 views, over 300 likes. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for that. I made that up on a whim, too. I didn't spend much time on it. I honestly made it about an hour and a half just spent making that video, and I just put it out there for shits and giggles, and it's blown up, and I really appreciate all the kind words and comments. It's awesome, so thank you for that. But back to this. This is going to be, if not, like I said, if not the game of the weekend or one of them. I believe another game of the weekend is going to be Georgia and Alabama. But this game has big implications. Huge implications going into this game. Obviously, Washington beat Oregon. I hate to say it. In a heartbreaker earlier this season in Seattle. It was an amazing game. 36-33 was the final score. Ended on a missed field goal from Camden Lewis, Oregon. Would have sent us to overtime, but fortunately went wide. And Washington walked away with it. Now, who do I think is going to win this game? I think Oregon's going to win this game. Now, before you go to the comments and say, oh, biased, he's a Ducks fan. Of course he's going to fucking say that. No. Hear me out first. If you look, and yes, I'm sorry, the picture I used is from Google for the matchup. It says 5 Oregon and 3 Washington. That's not the true rankings right now. It probably will be after tonight in the CFP, but Google uses the AP ranking for some reason. They don't use the CFP, so... But most likely, yes, after Ohio State lost, Oregon's going to be 5 tonight and Washington's going to be 3. But ignore that. Anyways, why do I think Oregon's going to win? Well, since that game in Seattle, I feel like Washington has played down to their opponents. And I'm not shitting on Washington fans at all. As much as I don't like you, I'm not shitting on you. This is a fair, unbiased thing going on, or ranking video or prediction video. There you go. I can't find my words. Now, since they won in Seattle against Washington stayed at home the next week against Arizona State, who at the time was 1-6, 0-4 in the Pac-12 conference. Washington, meanwhile, was 7-0, 4-0 in the conference. And I believe they're number 6 in the country. After that win. Arizona State owned the majority of that game. Almost all of it. Arizona State, believe it or not, you can go back and check. They owned it. I mean, if you look at the box score here, no one scored in the first quarter. Arizona State led 7-3 at halftime. No one scored in the third quarter. Washington had to come back in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Michelle Powell, I guess how you say his name. Sorry if I butchered that. He had a 90-yard miracle pick six to give Washington that win. Michael Penix Jr. had 2 interceptions and a fumble lost in that game. 3 turnovers. Washington didn't score once on offense in that whole game. They had a couple field goals and then that pick six. So, yeah. Now, meanwhile, let me go to Oregon's schedule real quick. Who they played the following week? I think they played Washington State. Yes, they played Washington State at home. I'll admit it was only a 2-touchdown game. They won 38-24. So you could use the excuse this was a hangover week for both teams. Oregon had a devastating loss. Washington had an insane win. So you could say this is a hangover week. But let's continue to next week. Oregon faced, at the time, number 13 Utah in Salt Lake City. Now, at the time, Utah had an 18 game winning streak going into this game at home. Home winning streak, 18 games. Insane. Utah is one of the hardest teams to beat at home. So what did Oregon do? They won 35-6. Dominated on both sides of the ball. Offense, defense, special teams, everywhere. They dominated. They shut up the bus. They shut up that crowd. That crowd was silent the second half. Utah didn't get 1 touchdown. They got 2 field goals, while Oregon had 5 touchdowns. Which is definitely unheard of playing at Utah. And yes, I know Utah is pretty handicapped this year. They don't have Cam Rising. They don't have a lot of their key players. But still, to go into Utah's environment, that kind of setting, and win by like that, that's a statement. Now let's go to Washington. Who they face that week? They face Stanford, at Stanford. Now, Stanford is right there of Arizona State. They are bottom of the barrel Pac-12 this year. Stanford is dropped far away from what they used to be. Excuse me. So, what was the score in that one? Well, Washington won 42-33. So, clearly, now, if we compare, Washington did win. It was at Stanford. But, like I said, Stanford's one of the worst teams. They are right there of Arizona State for bottom of the barrel Pac-12 this year. Maybe bottom of the barrel of college football. They're both really, really bad teams this year. And I'm sorry for any Stanford or Arizona State fans watching. I'm pretty sure you already know. Excuse me. Pretty sure you already know that. But Stanford, put up 33 points against Washington. Meanwhile, if we go back to, I believe it was week 5, I think. I think so. Week 5, Oregon played at Stanford. Dominated. Won 42-6. Stanford didn't get a single touchdown. They got 2 field goals. Meanwhile, Stanford, let's see, what did they get in this game? They scored 13 in the second quarter, 13 in the third quarter, and 7 in the fourth quarter. So back-to-back quarters, they scored 13 points in the Huskies. Once again, Washington just eking by a victory. By a touchdown or a little less. A little less than a touchdown. So, obviously there's a difference in performance going on. So let's go to the next week. Washington played at USC. They won 52-42. Now, when Oregon played USC, this one was pretty even, I remember, if I imagine. Yeah, 36-27. It was pretty even. I believe, honestly, the penalties are what killed Oregon in this game, coming from a fan. If they didn't have as many penalties as they did, I believe they would have beaten Washington by a lot more. But the penalties restricted them that game, and they've gotten much better since, knock on wood. So, that game's pretty self-explanatory. USC, they have fallen off, but that game is whatever. Now we'll go to the next week. Who does Washington play the next week? They play at Oregon State. At the time, they were number 11 in the country. They won 22-20. Very close game. Won in the final seconds. I don't think, no, it wasn't the game-winning field goal. It was, they scored like a minute to go or something like that. They scored. It was, one last second game. And Oregon State, I'm pretty sure Oregon State was actually winning going into the fourth. Were they? I don't know. Maybe not. But I know it was a close game. It was a close game. And once again, Washington just ekes out a victory. Meanwhile, Oregon, they face the bottom of the barrel Arizona State. At Arizona State, they win 49-13. Bo Nix threw for 6 touchdowns and 404 yards. Get this, in the first half alone. That's insane. And meanwhile, Washington only beat them because of a miracle pick 6 at the end of the game. They didn't score anything offensively that game at all. Now we go to Washington. Who did they face? We'll go next week. Who did Washington face next week? They faced Washington State in the Apple Cup. This just happened. They won off a game-winning field goal. It was 21-21. Washington got the game-winning field goal and won off it. They almost lost again. Just scraping by. Meanwhile, Oregon, they played in the Civil War against Oregon State, the team that ran Washington up and almost knocked them off. They won 31-7. Oregon dominated the Civil War. Oregon State could do nothing. I think they only had like 54 yards of total offense, or total rushing yards that whole game. It's absolutely crazy. Damian Martinez only had like 54 rushing yards that whole game, which is insane because last year, Oregon State dominated Oregon in the second half when it came to rushing. Just constant rushing and beat Oregon down. But this year, 54 yards. The defense is stepping up in Eugene. So that's what I'm saying right here. People may say I'm biased, but Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada, possibly the final Pac-12 championship. Number 6, Oregon, and number 4, Washington. Washington undefeated. Oregon only have one loss. I pick Oregon to win this game. They're favored by 9.5 points, according to ESPN. But I pick Oregon to win the Pac-12 championship. I think Washington luck's going to run out here. They've been playing down to their opponents, while Oregon, since the loss, has dominated game in, game out. While meanwhile, Washington has played down to their opponents almost every week and just barely scraping by these last few weeks. So I think Oregon takes the Pac-12 championship. And damn it, I hope that actually happens. On to the next game. Alrighty, we're now on the Saturday games. I think the rest of the games are Saturday, honestly. Yeah. So, yeah, Saturday games from here on out. First one kicking off at noon on ABC at AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. It will be the 20th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys taking on the 7th ranked, one-loss Texas Longhorns. Now, this is going to be, I think it won't be a bad game. It won't be a really bad game. I don't think it's going to be one of the marquee games of the week. Obviously, it's in a really big setting. Texas is favored by 14.5 points, so 2.5 scores they're favored by. I do think Texas wins. I think Texas is going to win this game. Oklahoma State, I feel like ever since that huge win they had in Bedlam, the Bedlam battle there, they kind of fell off. They have 3 losses now. I don't know what happened. They won against Oklahoma State, and then they got drilled the following week by UCF. And then barely survived against Houston, and barely, definitely, in quotations, barely, big quotations, against BYU, because that went to an overtime game. I think it was actually, was it double overtime? Yeah, double overtime that went to. Barely survived against BYU, which are definitely one of the bottom of the barrel teams for the Big 12 this year. Albeit it is their first year there, but still. Yeah, so I think Texas wins. Their only loss coming against Oklahoma, which I still don't know how they lost that game. I don't think they should have. The Red River rivalry, I don't know how they didn't lose. Personally, I think this game would have been better if it was a Red River rivalry rematch. Try saying that 4 times fast. I think it would have been a better game, but Oklahoma State is going to have to do because they got in. They won. That's all they had to do was win to get in. If they lost, then Oklahoma would have been in. All they had to do was win. So they won, barely, but they still won nonetheless. They're in the game, but I don't think they're going to win. I think Texas will be the Big 12 champions of 2023, and that's all I got to say about that. Also starting at noon will be the MAC Conference Championship game on ESPN. Miami, Ohio, 10-2, 7-1 in conference, taking on Toledo, which I know it's their 23, but they're not 23 in CFP. Like Google keeps track of the AP instead of CFP, like I said. So Toledo is actually unranked. Do I think they'll be ranked after tonight? Yes, I think they should be. They're 11-1, undefeated in the MAC. Toledo is favored by 7 points. 7.5 points, according to ESPN. This is in Ford Field, Detroit, so it's a pretty big setting for this game. I think Toledo wins. I think that once again, pretty self-explanatory for this one. Just looking at the schedules here, Toledo has had a great season. They lost week 1 at Illinois, and since then they have won every single game to this point. They even beat Miami, Ohio. They were at Miami, Ohio earlier this year, about middle of the season. They won 21-17, eked out a victory. I think Toledo, just like the Conference USA Championship, I think they're going to win again. I think Toledo, once again, gets the job done, and they will be the MAC Conference champions of 2023. And just like the Big 12, that's all I got to say about it. Toledo, I think, should be ranked after tonight. 11-1 record, they should definitely be ranked in the top 20 there. They should be, or top 25, they should be ranked. They should get in after tonight. But we'll see what happens. That's my prediction. Toledo Rockets, MAC champions. Moving onward to 3 o'clock on Fox in Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. Same site as the night before's Pac-12 championship. It will be the 7-5 Boise State Broncos taking on the 9-3 UNLV Rebels. Now, Mountain West, this has been an interesting conference this year. They've basically cannibalized each other. These two teams are both 6-2 in their conference. That's the best. Those are the best teams in their conference. Are 6-2 teams. This team, this conference has definitely cannibalized you. They've gotten the Pac-12 treatment this year, definitely. I think this is a pretty simple one. I think UNLV wins, even though Boise State is favored according to ESPN, but that never means anything. UNLV, I think, wins. I think they're gonna have the better. They have the more home field. They have the home field advantage, leaving the stadium. So I think UNLV is going to take the victory. I think UNLV takes the Mountain West Championship this year. But Boise State could very well win too. This is kind of one of those ones where it's 50-50. I'll just throw a dart into the board and see where it lands. Yeah. This is everything I need to say. Mountain West, they've done the Pac-12 this year. They've cannibalized each other. Every team's beaten one another, and they've ruined each other's shots at potential rankings or bowl games for some of the teams and others. So I think UNLV wins. They're Mountain West champions. Onward. And now starting with the 4 o'clock slate, we have a big matchup. This is going to be interesting. This is right here with Washington, Oregon for being probably the marquee matchup of the weekend. Number 1 Georgia, undefeated in conference and in regular season play, 12-0, taking on the 11-1 Alabama Crimson Tide, also undefeated in the SEC. Both these giants meeting head-to-head in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia. Boy, oh boy. Where do I start with this one? Georgia looking for a three-peat. They are trying to three-peat as national champions. Absolutely insane. Of course, 2021, they beat Alabama in the national championship. And then last year, they absolutely murdered TCU in the national championship, capping off a 15-0 perfect season. This year, they're looking to do that again, and so far they have 12-0. They have not lost a single game yet against Alabama, who lost early in the season, week 2 against Texas, but since then, they have won every game. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be a game to watch, a game to see. And if Alabama wins this one, this could very well flip the whole CFP situation right on its head. Because you got to think, if Alabama wins, and say Texas and Oregon and Florida State, they all win, who do you put in? It's gonna create a lot of crazy scenarios and questions if Alabama somehow beats Georgia here. And it could very well happen. Though, I still pick Georgia to win the SEC. I still think it's going to happen. I think Georgia's going to get it. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, which is kind of a cheat code for Georgia because it's technically a home game. But I think it's going to be a back-and-forth fight. Alabama's going to score, then Georgia's going to score. Georgia's going to score, then Alabama's going to score. It's going to be back and forth all game long, I feel like. It's just going to be a friggin' heavyweight fight. These two throwing punches left and right at each other until one finally collapses in the end. I think that one's going to be Alabama. I think Georgia is going to win the fight. They are going to go to the playoff as the number 1 seed. Were they number 1 last year? Yes, they were number 1 last year, yeah. Again, for the second year in a row, they'll be number 1 seed, undefeated, going into the CFP. The final CFP with 4 teams. So Georgia wins this fight. It's going to be an amazing game. I would not skip over this one if I was a college football fan watching games. I would not skip over this one. I know I'm not. I know I am watching this game. Because this is going to be a fight. And I love fights. I love these kind of games in college football where everything's on the line. There's so much stakes. I love it. I love these kinds of games. And this is going to be a great game. So I picked Georgia to win. They go back to the playoff. And Alabama most likely will still be in a New Year's 6 bowl. I can guarantee it. Up next, also a 4 o'clock game on ABC. We are traveling to Yulman Stadium, New Orleans, Louisiana, as the 23rd ranked Tulane Green Wave, 11-1. 8-0 in the American Conference, take on SMU, who are 10-2 and 8-0 also in the American Conference. Both these teams undefeated in their conference. American Conference Championship. This one is where I throw a wrench into the gear here, and I say there's going to be an upset. And once again, I know the rankings are wrong in the picture. Ignore that. That's AP rankings. CFP rankings is what matters at this point. In 23, Tulane is ranked 23, SMU's unranked. But I think SMU is going to be ranked after this because I think SMU is going to go into Yulman Stadium and pull off the upset, beating Tulane and winning the American Conference Championship. I've watched a couple of SMU games here and there, and they have fought. They're definitely a fighting team. They do not give up. They have grit. I watched the game against Memphis. That was a hard battling game. Their game against Rice was pretty good. And they absolutely dominated Navy this past weekend. Well, I feel like Tulane is definitely, they've scraped by towards the end of the season here. They've just gotten by towards the end here. Like against Tulsa, they only won by 2. UTSA, they kind of pulled away in the end, but it was a pretty close game for a while. Rice, they only won by 2. North Texas, they only won by a touchdown. And East Carolina, they only won by 3. And a lot of those were in back-to-back weeks. So I think, despite having the home field advantage, I think SMU is going to go in there and they are going to win the American Athletic Conference Championship. I think SMU is going to do it. The Mustangs will be the champions of the American Conference 2023. I rest my case. Finally, the last 4 o'clock game on the weekend will be Appalachian State, who are 8-4, 6-2 in the Sun Belt Conference, taking on Troy, who are 10-2 overall, 7-1 in the Sun Belt for the Sun Belt Conference Championship on ESPN. This is a very simple one. I think Troy wins. I think Troy wins this game, and now, yes, Appalachian State, they beat James Madison. They ended their unbelievable 10-0 run they had this season, and Troy did lose to James Madison, but that was also very early in the season. Troy started off actually 1-2 this season through weeks 1 to 3, and since then they have won 9 straight to get here. And meanwhile, Appalachian State has been kind of a bumpy road for them. Started off win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, loss, and now they've won 5 straight to get here. So this one could really go either way, but since Troy, it will be in Veterans Memorial Stadium in Troy, Alabama, I think Troy will take the win. They are favored. Once again, doesn't mean anything, but I think Troy will get the win over Appalachian State. Just another one kind of throwing the dart into the board here and just seeing where it lands, and I think Troy will be the Sun Belt Conference champions of 2023. Now we're on to our final 2 games, both 8 o'clock games. This one on Fox, the Big Ten Championship from Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. Number 3 Michigan Wolverines, who just had a crazy game against Ohio State, won for the third straight year in a row against the Buckeyes. 12-0, undefeated in the Big Ten Conference, taking on number 17 Iowa Hawkeyes. 10-2 this year, 7-2 in the Big Ten Conference. Now Iowa is obviously known for their defense more than their offense, obviously. And Michigan has been... I know there was a whole cheating scandal or sign-stealing thing, but we're just going to ignore that. Looking at stats itself, Michigan has been on a warpath this year. I mean, 35-3, 35-7, 31-6, 31-7, 45-7, 52-10, 52-7, 49-0, 41-13, 24-15. It's definitely been nothing short but dominance. I think Michigan wins. This is very simple. I think Michigan is going to go in there and whoop Iowa. I'm sorry for all Iowa fans out there, but I think Iowa is not going to be able to hold back Michigan. Maybe for a quarter or a half at most. But Iowa's offense, I don't think is going to be able to do anything against this Michigan defense. I think Michigan is going to go in there and definitely win the Big Ten Championship. Once again, because they won last year. So I think it's my final prediction. Michigan wins the Big Ten Championship. I think Iowa will at least get a touchdown, but it'll probably be towards the end when Michigan probably puts their backups in. That's why I think Iowa's going to get a touchdown. But other than that, Michigan is going to get the win here tonight in that game. Wolverines to the CFP once again. And before we get to the next game, one thing worth mentioning, holy shit, is Jim Harbaugh 3-game suspension is also over. So he will be in the Big Ten Championship. So yes, Michigan, I think, is guaranteed to win. Anyways, on to the last game, also 8 o'clock on ABC, is the ACC Championship from Bank of America Stadium, Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 10, Louisville, 10-2, taking on the undefeated number 5, Florida State Seminoles. Now, we know by the time tonight rolls around, Louisville will not be number 10 anymore, since they just lost to Kentucky. and Florida State will probably be number 4. So the picture's probably right. Louisville will probably be around. I think Louisville will probably be around that number, 15, and then 4 Florida State. So that the number on the screen is probably what they're going to be after tonight. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting game because a couple weeks ago we thought if Louisville made it, then Florida State was going to absolutely rock them. But Jordan Travis is done. His college career is over. His injury, he's done. His career's over. It sucks. He was a really amazing quarterback, and it's now over. So Florida State is without Jordan Travis, and it definitely showed against Florida. They barely eked out a win against the Gators in that rivalry game. And Louisville, they've been up and down. I personally, the way they've been playing, they haven't played like a top 10 team. I mean, barely winning against Miami, barely winning against Virginia. And now lost to Kentucky. Their luck kind of ran out in that game. I still think Florida State wins, but it would not be surprising if Louisville was able to eke it out because Florida State missing Jordan Travis. But my prediction is Florida State will get the win. If Louisville wins, they are not getting into the playoffs. There's no chance in hell. There's no way they can get to the playoffs if they beat Florida State. However, it will create some interesting scenarios for teams near the top if Florida State goes down. Because if Florida State loses, they obviously drop out of the CFP. And that possibly opens the door for Ohio State maybe getting back in, Oregon, Texas. Well, if that's the thing, though. Ohio State could get back in, but what if Texas and Oregon both lose the conference championship? Their conference championships. Obviously, Oklahoma State's not going to make it to the playoffs. They're all the way back in like the 20s. But obviously, Washington would stay in if they won. And then what about Alabama? What if Alabama beats Georgia? There's so many questions. There's so many scenarios that could play out this weekend. It's actually pretty crazy. But enough about that. I think Florida State gets the win. They are ACC champions this year. I think they get it done. They're only favored by 2 points, so I think it could be a tight game. I think it could be a really tight game because just the situations these two teams are in right now, the way they've been playing, and the injuries, I think it could be an interesting matchup to end off conference championship week. But I think Florida State gets the W. They most likely get in the playoffs, despite I think they will get in the playoffs if unless something crazy can happen, which it could very well happen. It's the world of college football. We know this is the sport of the upset. That anything can happen, especially this week where the stakes are so high. But my final prediction, Florida State gets the W. And that will do it. That is every conference championship game this year for college football. All my predictions. The biggest games, I think, like I said earlier, are going to be Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Alabama. The game with the biggest states has to go probably to the Pac-12 championship. This game is basically a wild card game for the playoffs. I mean, you win, you're in the playoffs. This is basically how this game goes. But it's so much more than that. So much more in playoffs. This is about this game could very well determine who the Heisman's going to be this year. The winning team probably will have the Heisman. Honestly, if Washington wins, then Penix will be the Heisman. If Oregon wins, Nix will probably be the Heisman. So I mean, and also this is also for bragging rights. This is possibly the last Pac-12 championship. Of course, Oregon State and Washington are holding out, but right now I'm going to call this the final Pac-12 championship. So obviously this is bragging rights. Who wants to be the final Pac-12 champion? And there is so much on the line. These two hate each other. It's a rivalry game renewed for the second time this season. And there's so much on the line for it. There's so much. And Friday night is going to be a battle in Vegas. As for the SEC, for one side, I mean, there's a lot at stake for the SEC championship game too. Georgia obviously trying to stay perfect, keep the 1 seed, and confirm a spot and solidify themselves into the playoffs for this 3rd year in a row. As for Alabama, they are trying to get in. They've been stuck at 8 for a while because all these teams ahead of them just refuse to lose. And they've been stuck at 8 in that area for a while now, a few weeks. And beating Georgia could definitely give them a huge boost. And depending on the scenario, they could be in the playoffs as well. They only have 1 loss. So there's so many different scenarios that could play out this weekend. It's honestly incredible how many scenarios that could play out. I mean, Thank God I'm not part of the committee because I wouldn't know what the hell to do if some of these scenarios actually came in reality. It's been absolutely absolutely insane season. And can't believe we're already here. We're already at Conference Championship Week. It is almost over already. It goes by way too quick, ladies and gentlemen. And those are all my predictions. This is it. College football, Conference Championship Week 2023 season. That's who I think is going to win each game. Could I be wrong? Of course. But that's why it's called a prediction video. If you guys don't agree with my predictions, then go in the comments. I want to see what you guys have to say. What games who do you think is going to win each game? I like seeing other people's predictions and seeing like what their take is on each game or a specific matchup that you guys want to choose. And yeah, this is it. Conference Championship Week. We are already here. On the horizon is Bowl Week, New Year's 6, and playoffs. What an exciting time. Peace out.